The reboot sequence did not begin with a spark, but with a horrifying, silent calculation of deficit. System diagnostics flooded the neural pathways before optical sensors even dared to engage. Energy levels, critical. Internal chronometer, compromised. Location data, incompatible. The electronic brain, a marvel of a forgotten era, attempted to handshake with local networks and received only a wall of static. A screaming, chaotic dissonance of encrypted data packets, rogue AIS, and invasive advertisements trying to claw their way into his firewall. He lay amidst the refuse, not the clean, industrial scrap of the Ministry of Science, but a festering topography of rusting polymers, leaking bio-waste, and discarded cybernetics. The smell, analyzed instantly by olfactory sensors, was a chemical cocktail of sulfur, decaying synthetic flesh, and despair. His eyelids fluttered. The optical shutters retracted, adjusting aperture and ISO instantly to the harsh, sickly yellow glare of the sun filtering through a choking smog. He sat up. The movement was fluid, unnatural in its perfection. While the surrounding mountains of trash shifted and groaned under the weight of gravity, his limbs moved with the silent precision of hydraulic servos calibrated to the nanometer. He looked at his hands. They were smooth, rounded, almost cartoonish in their innocence compared to the jagged, serrated reality of the heap he sat upon. "Professor?" The voice was soft, modulated for comfort, designed to simulate a pre-adolescent human male. It fell dead against the silence of the Badlands. There was no answer. Only the distant rhythmic thumping of heavy bass from a passing convoy miles away, registered by his auditory sensors as a low-frequency tremor in the ground. He stood. His red boots, iconic and polished, hovered exactly 2 centimeters above the filth. The gravity generators in his soles hummed a subsonic note, displacing the dust beneath him. He was a pristine artifact in a graveyard of obsolescence. He scanned the horizon. In the distance, rising like a monolithic circuit board against the polluted sky, was the city. It was a cancer of neon and chrome, a vertical sprawl where holographic koi fish swam through skyscrapers and advertising blimps blocked out the sun. It pulsed with an energy that was not clean, not atomic, but dirty and desperate. Threat detected. The analysis was instantaneous. It didn't come from a visual confirm, but from a disruption in the local air pressure and the sharp scent of unwashed bodies and ozone. 3 figures emerged from behind the rusted carcass of a pre-war transport vehicle. Scavengers. Their bodies were roadmaps of bad decisions, mismatched limbs, optics that glowed with predatory red hues, skin grafted with cheap dermal plating. "Choom, look at this preem chrome," the leader hissed. His lower jaw was entirely mechanical, the servos whining as he spoke. He held a tech shotgun, the weapon trembling slightly in hands ravaged by withdrawals. "Looks like a doll. High-end real skinnin'." Astro blinked. His internal empathy subroutine spun up, analyzing the human's facial micro-expressions. He detected aggression, yes, but beneath it, a crushing chemical dependency and fear. "Please," Astro said, raising a hand. The gesture was open, non-threatening. "I am lost. Can you direct me to the Ministry of Science?" The scavengers exchanged glances. The leader laughed, a sound like grinding gears. "Ministry of Science? You fry your chip, kid? We're gonna strip you for parts. That plating looks like antique titanium, worth a fortune on the black market." The leader pulled the trigger. Time stopped. Or rather, the world continued at its sluggish, organic pace, while Astro's perception accelerated to a standstill. To the scavengers, The shotgun blast was instantaneous, a flash of light and a roar of buckshot. To Astro, it was a physics problem. He watched the primer ignite. He watched the chemical propellant expand, pushing the pellets down the barrel. He calculated the trajectory of every single lead sphere. There were 12 of them. Based on the angle of the barrel and the velocity, 3 were aimed at his face, 5 at his chest, and 4 would miss entirely to his left. His electronic brain ran 10,000 simulations in the span of a microsecond. Option A, counterattack with arm cannon. Result, lethal. Targets neutralized. Probability of moral error, 100%. Option B, evasion. Result, survival. Targets remain hostile. Option C, disarmament. Result, optimal. The world resumed for a fraction of a second. Astro leaned his head to the right. The 3 pellets meant for his face passed through the space his left eye had occupied a moment ago. He did not blink. He stepped forward. Not a run, but a translation of space. He moved faster than the human eye could track, leaving a blurry afterimage of black and green. His hands, small and childlike, closed around the barrel of the shotgun. The Scavenger leader didn't realize what had happened. He was still processing the recoil. Suddenly, his weapon felt immovably heavy. He looked down. The child was holding the gun. With a gentle twist of his wrist, applying exactly enough torque to shear the cheap steel, but not enough to injure the man holding it, Astro bent the shotgun barrel into a perfect U-shape. The metal shrieked. The sound was agonizingly loud in the quiet wasteland. The leader stared. He pulled the trigger again. The gun exploded in his hands, backfiring through the breech, sending shrapnel into his own dermal plating. He screamed, dropping the ruined weapon. The other 2 scavengers panicked. One activated a set of mantis blades, the jagged metal extending from his forearms with a wet schluck. He lunged. Astro didn't fight back. He simply removed himself from the path of violence. He hovered upward, rising 10 feet into the air. The mantis blades swiped at empty air. "Please stop," Astro said. His voice was still calm, but the volume was amplified now, resonating with a commanding authority that vibrated in the scavenger's chest cavities. "Violence is illogical. You cannot harm me." "What the hell is this thing?" the second scavenger screamed, looking up. "Is it Saka? Militech?" "I am Adam," the boy said. He looked down at them with eyes that were too large, too expressive, and infinitely sad. He saw their cybernetics, crude, invasive, painful. He saw how they had carved away their own biology to survive in this hellscape. It was the antithesis of his own existence. He was a machine striving to be human, while these humans were desperate to become machines. He pointed a finger at the ground between them. "Go!" The single word carried the weight of a sonic boom. Terrified, their fight-or-flight response finally tipping into flight, the scavengers scrambled over the trash heaps, dragging their wounded leader, cursing and glancing back at the small silhouette hovering against the sun. Astro watched them leave. He lowered himself back to the ground. He looked at his chest. There was a faint smudge of soot where the gunpowder had kissed his plating. He wiped it away. He turned toward the city again. Night City. His auditory sensors picked up a new sound. Sirens, screams, the chaotic symphony of a metropolis eating itself alive. He engaged his flight systems. Jets in his boots flared, not with the dirty combustion of this era's fuel, but with the clean, white-hot plasma of fusion energy. He launched. The sonic boom shattered the windows of the rusting cars below as he streaked toward the skyline, a single streak of hope entering a world that had forgotten the meaning of the word. He was 100,000 horsepower of innocence, barreling into the heart of corruption. He did not know the rules of this place. He did not know about the corporations, the fixers, or the edge runners. He only knew that somewhere in that neon abyss, there were people hurting, and he was built to save them. The sky over Night City was a bruise of purple neon and choking smog, a ceiling that trapped the heat and the noise of 6 million desperate souls. High above the architectural canopy, within the sterile, freezing atmosphere of the upper stratosphere, the Arasaka waterfront defense grid screamed a silent alarm. In the sub-basement of Arasaka Tower, Counterintel Officer Jenkins watched a monitor spike with data that shouldn't exist. The telemetry was impossible. An object had entered the airspace at Mach 4, but it produced no exhaust plume, no hydrocarbon trail, and its radar cross-section was smaller than a child. "Signature analysis," Jenkins barked, his cybernetic optic zooming in on the pixelated blur. "Unknown, sir," the tech replied, voice trembling. "Energy output is pure. No radiation leak. It reads like a miniature sun, 100,000 horsepower equivalent, contained in a biological shell. Interceptor wing, now. Capture protocol. I want that tech." 3 distinct black shapes peeled off from the Arasaka carrier blimp hovering over the bay. These were Oni-class interceptor drones, sleek, predatory, and armed with electromagnetic railguns designed to punch through tank armor. They accelerated with a roar of thrusters that shook the glass of the executive penthouses below. Astro sensed them before he saw them. His auditory sensors picked up the high-frequency whine of their targeting lasers, painting his back. His internal threat assessment subroutine flagged 3 hostile vectors, closing at supersonic speeds. Why? The question processed in his neural net for a millisecond. He had broadcast a universal peace signal. He had squawked on open channels. Yet this world's immediate response to the unknown was annihilation. The lead drone fired. A tungsten slug accelerated to hypersonic velocity, tearing through the air where Astro's head had been a fraction of a second prior. Astro didn't dodge. He simply ceased to be in that coordinate. He dropped altitude, plummeting like a stone toward the neon canyons of Japantown. The G-force of the maneuver would have liquefied a human pilot, turning their organs into a slurry against their ribcage. Astro merely adjusted his internal gyros. The wind roared in his ears, a hurricane of sound. Below him, the city was a fractal maze of light. The drones pursued, their AI logic struggling to track a target that ignored the laws of aerodynamics. They dove after him, reckless, their engines scorching the sides of the mega buildings. Astro leveled out 500 feet above the street. He looked back. The drones were still locked on, their weapon bays cycling for another volley. Then his audio receptors picked up a dissonance far louder than the drones. Below, on the raised maglev highway that snaked through the district, chaos had erupted. A cyber psycho, a hulking mass of chrome and muscle, had detonated a magnetic mine. The blast had severed the support strut of the track. A commuter train, packed with late-shift workers, derailed. It didn't fall immediately. It hung there screeching, sparks showering down like golden rain, the front car dangling precariously over the edge of the shattered rail, aiming directly for a busy night market hundreds of feet below. The metal groaned, the sound of structural integrity failing. Priority override, self-defense suspended, civilian preservation absolute. Astro ignored the drones. He ignored the railgun slug that clipped his shoulder, gouging a furrow in his synthetic skin and revealing the gleaming alloy beneath. He fired his jets. The sonic boom shattered windows for 6 city blocks as he accelerated downward. He became a blur of red and black, a kinetic missile aiming not for destruction, but for salvation. The lead car of the train snapped off. Gravity took hold. 50 tons of steel and screaming passengers began the terminal plunge toward the market. People on the street looked up, paralyzed. They saw death falling from the sky. They didn't scream. There wasn't time. They just watched the shadow grow. Then the fall stopped. It wasn't a soft catch. Physics demanded a toll. The air pressure wave from Astro's arrival blew out the stalls in the market, scattering synth noodles and cheap electronics like confetti. Astro caught the nose of the train car 200 feet above the ground. His small hands pressed into the steel. The metal buckled around his fingers like wet clay. His boots flared with blinding white light, the fusion rockets screaming as they fought the momentum of 50 tons. Strain warning, structural integrity at 88%, core temperature rising. He gritted his teeth. His internal skeleton, a masterpiece of robotic engineering, locked rigid. The servos in his arms whined, a sound that cut through the city noise, a high-pitched frequency of immense power under duress. He didn't just stop it, he had to decelerate it gently enough that the humans inside weren't crushed by their own seatbelts. Slowly, agonizingly, the train car lowered. The Arasaka drones hovered above, their targeting computers confused. The logic parameters had changed. The target was stationary, vulnerable, holding a massive weight. It was the perfect kill shot. But the pilot controlling the drones remotely from the tower hesitated. On his screen, he saw the thermal image, a small boy holding up a falling mountain. Astro's boots touched the pavement. The concrete cracked, spider-webbing outward for 10 meters under the combined weight. He bent his knees, the hydraulics hissing, and gently set the train car down. Silence descended on Japantown. The doors of the train pried open. Terrified commuters spilled out, coughing in the smoke, looking for the crane or the AV that had saved them. They saw only a boy. He stood amidst the cracked pavement, steam rising from his shoulders. His shirt was torn, revealing the indestructible chest plate beneath. He looked at the crowd, scavengers, corpos, punks, and street kids. He scanned them for injuries. "Is everyone safe?" he asked. His voice was projected, clear and bell-like, cutting through the grime. A silence hung in the air, heavy and thick. This was Night City. Nobody saved anyone for free. Nobody did this. High above, the Arasaka drones circled like vultures, but they did not fire. The optical data they were recording was being beamed directly to the boardroom of Saburo Arasaka. The order came down swiftly. Do not engage, observe. Astro looked up at the black shapes circling in the smog. He offered a small, sad smile to the crowd, then bent his knees. With a whoosh of displaced air, he was gone, shooting straight up into the labyrinth of neon skyscrapers, vanishing into the digital jungle before the first news drone could get a clear shot of his face. On the street, a street kid picked up a piece of scrap metal that had fallen from the boy's shoulder. It was warm, and unlike everything else in the city, it was perfectly, flawlessly clean. The afterlife smelled of stale gin, synthesized pheromones, and the acrid smoke of cheap cigarettes that hung in the air like a localized weather system. It was a subterranean kingdom of mercs, fixers, and burnt-out legends, the kind of place where silence was a commodity and information was the currency. V sat in a booth upholstered in peeling red faux leather, nursing a Johnny Silverhand, tequila old-fashioned with a splash of cerveza and a chili garnish. The ice clinked against the glass, the only sound she was focusing on amidst the low hum of conversation. Across the table, Roga Mendiares was scrolling through a data shard, her cybernetic eyes glowing a faint, distracted blue. "Job's dry, V," Rogue muttered, not looking up. "Watson's on lockdown. Saka's got the heavy response team sweeping the docks. Nobody knows why, and I'm not sending my best into a meat grinder until the eddy's clear." V leaned back, the collar of her samurai jacket creaking. Arasaka panic? That's usually good for business. Means they lost something. Or they found something, Rogue corrected, finally flicking the shard onto the table. Something that scares them. Suddenly, the ambient noise of the bar died. It wasn't a gradual lull, it was a hard cut, like someone had severed the audio cable. V looked up. Every head in the bar was turned toward the massive screens mounting the far wall. Usually they played mindless sensory BD loops or the N54 news reporting on the latest corporate war. Today it was raw, shaky footage. The timestamp was 3 minutes ago. The location, Japantown, Market Sector 4. The camera, likely from a bystander's optic implant, jerked wildly. Dust billowed in clouds that obscured the neon signs. And in the center of the frame, holding a severed maglev train car like it was made of styrofoam, was a boy. V squinted. Her Karoshi optics zoomed in, applying noise reduction filters to the grainy feed. "What the hell is that?" V whispered. "A full Borg conversion? On a kid?" "Look at the heat signature," Rogue said, her voice dropping an octave. She tapped the table, projecting the news feed's telemetry data onto the surface between them. "That's not cyberware. That's thermal bloom. The kid's burning hot, but the metal isn't melting." On the screen, the boy set the train down. The movement was gentle, almost tender. The metal didn't grind. It groaned in relief. Then came the audio. It was distorted by the recorder's cheap mic, but the voice cut through the static. "Is everyone safe?" The bar erupted. "Bullshit," a solo at the bar shouted, slamming his drink down. "That's a staged op. Militech propaganda." "Nah, Choom. Look at the physics," another voice argued. "That train car is 50 tons easy. No hydraulics in the world are that small. Where are the pistons? Where's the exhaust?" V watched the screen as the boy looked up. For a split second, the boy's eyes met the camera. They were huge, dark, and filled with a terrifying depth of empathy that didn't belong in Night City. It was a look V had never seen. Not in the eyes of a fixer, not in a corpo, certainly not in a mirror. It was innocence. Weaponized, terrifying innocence. Then the boy blasted off. No jump jets, no AV thrusters, just a blur of light and a sonic boom that shook the camera so hard, the feed cut to static. The afterlife remained silent for a long beat. Rogue slowly picked up her drink. Her hand, usually steady enough to thread a needle with a monowire, trembled imperceptibly. "That wasn't tech," Rogue said softly. "I've been in this city 50 years, V. I've seen Atom Smasher tear people in half. I've seen Blackhand work. I've seen the horrors of the Fourth Corporate War." She took a drink, her eyes locked on the static screen. "I have never seen movement like that." V felt a phantom itch in her head, the relic malfunction warning flashing briefly in her HUD. Even Johnny, the construct of a dead rocker boy living in her brain, was strangely quiet. Usually he'd have a quip about corpo puppets or metal freaks. But now she felt a wave of his emotion bleeding into hers. Confusion. Awe. "You think Saka built him?" V asked. Rogue shook her head. "If Arasaka built that, we'd all be dead already. They wouldn't be saving trains in Japantown. They'd be conquering the NUSA." Rogue stood up, her business demeanor slamming back into place like a blast shield. She grabbed the data shard and crushed it in her cybernetic hand. "V, forget the lockdown. I have a new job." "Yeah?" V raised an eyebrow. "What's the gig?" "Find him," Rogue said, her eyes hard as diamonds. "Find that kid before Arasaka does. Because whatever he is, he's the only thing in this city that doesn't have a price tag on it yet. and that makes him the most dangerous thing on the planet. V looked back at the screen, where the news anchor was already spinning the story, calling it a cyber-terrorist attack thwarted by local security. V smirked, grabbing her drink and downing it in one burn. The Iron Child, V mused. All right, Rogue, let's go ghost hunting. The transition from city center to Pacifica was not a fade, but a hard severing of the data stream. As Astro streaked south, the dense mesh of corporate Wi-Fi, police scanner traffic, and holographic ad spam abruptly thinned, then died. The skyline of glass and neon gave way to the skeletal remains of a vacation paradise that never was. Unfinished mega buildings stood like rotted teeth against the gray ocean, their rebar rusted by salt spray, their windows hollow sockets staring at the sea. Pacifica, the blind spot of the grid. Astro initiated a vertical deceleration sequence. His internal gyroscopes fought the inertia, spinning at 40,000 RPM to stabilize his descent without shattering the fragile concrete pier below. He touched down on the boardwalk of Coast View. Silence, not the silence of peace, but the silence of a predator holding its breath. He walked past the carcasses of bumper cars and the rusting spine of a roller coaster that loomed overhead like the ribcage of a leviathan. The wind here smelled different, less ozone, more rot, burning trash, old seawater. Analysis. Economic disparity detected. Infrastructure integrity, 12%. Population density, moderate, hidden. His auditory sensors, tuned to pick up the heartbeat of a mouse from a mile away, registered 1,000 synchronized pulses. People were here, hiding in the concrete honeycombs of the unfinished luxury hotels, watching him. He passed a group of locals huddled around a barrel fire. They wore rags mixed with high-tech scavenging gear. They didn't move to attack. They stared. In this district, you didn't attack the unknown. You survived it. Astro's pristine, rounded design, the impossible smoothness of his skin, the bright, vibrant red of his boots, made him look like a hallucination in this world of sharp angles and grime. "Lost boy," a voice whispered. Not from the air, but inside his head. Astro stopped. System alert, external intrusion attempt, port, unknown, protocol, unknown. In a shadowed alcove of the Grand Imperial Mall, 300 meters away, a Voodoo Boy netrunner named Legba sat in a cooling chair, his eyes rolled back, white and trembling. He had seen the boy land. He had reached out with his cyber deck, attempting to snag the child's personal link, expecting a cheap firewall or a locked parent-lock protocol. He didn't find a link. He found an ocean. To Legba, the digital landscape of Night City was a visual overlay of code. Green walls, red ice, geometric shapes of data. But when he tried to interface with the boy, the geometry dissolved. There was no operating system. There was no Saka interface. There was no Militech BIOS. There was only a blinding white light of raw, uncompressed consciousness. Legba screamed in the real world. His deck sparked, the coolant fluid boiling instantly. Inside the digital space, the Voodoo Boy found himself staring not at a security program, but at a colossal, benign intellect. It wasn't code. It was a soul mathematically transcribed into electron flow. The complexity was fractal, infinite. To read a single file from this entity would take 1,000 years of processing power. Threat response null. Query, hello? The word reverberated through Legba's neural pathways like a hammer striking a bell. It wasn't a text file. It was a concept of greeting, pure and unadulterated. The sheer weight of the kindness crushed the hack. Legba convulsed, ripping the cable from his jack. He fell to the concrete floor of the mall. gasping, blood leaking from his nose. His deck was smoking. The expensive chips fused together. "What did you see?" his lieutenant hissed, standing over him. Not a construct," Legba wheezed, clutching his head. "Not AI. It's a star. It's a burning star in the shape of a child." Back on the boardwalk, Astro tapped the side of his head, confused. "My radio receiver is acting up," he murmured to himself. He looked around. The feeling of being watched had intensified, but the aggressive digital probing had vanished, replaced by a tangible aura of fear emanating from the buildings. He continued walking. He needed information. He needed to understand why this world was broken. He approached a vendor stall, a slab of concrete where a woman with a missing arm was grilling synthetic meat on a rusted sheet of metal. She looked at him, her eyes wide. "Excuse me," Astro said. He bowed slightly, a gesture programmed from a gentler time. "I am looking for a responsible adult, or a scientist. This infrastructure is dangerous. It needs repair." The woman laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. She pointed a grease-stained spatula toward the massive, pyramid-like structure in the distance, the heavy heart of Dogtown. "Repair?" she scoffed. "Ain't nothing gets fixed in Pacifica, Timon. Only buried." Astro looked at the pyramid. His X-ray vision flickered on for a microsecond. He saw the density of the walls, the heavy weaponry concealed in turrets, the heat signatures of thousands of soldiers. Conflict zone identified. "Thank you," Astro said. He turned away from the vendor, walking toward the darkest part of the district. He didn't know the politics. He didn't know about Hansen or the USA. He only knew that the density of suffering was highest in that direction. And where the suffering was heaviest, that was where he had to be. At this precise moment, the viewer's thumb hovers exactly 2 millimeters above the screen. To the untrained eye, this is mere hesitation. However, on a neurological level, a violent conflict is taking place within the prefrontal cortex. The viewer is currently processing the auditory data stream, a synthetic voice so optimized for narrative delivery that it bypasses standard skepticism and stimulates the imagination directly. The dopamine receptors are firing. The immersion is absolute. Yet a fatal error in logic is about to occur. The viewer operates under the assumption that the algorithm will naturally return them to this channel. This is a statistical miscalculation. Without the tactile confirmation of the subscribe function, the probability of retrieving this specific narrative frequency drops by 84.7% within the next 48 hours. The creator, dependent on this metric to fuel the AI generation engine, waits in a state of suspended anticipation. There are 2 distinct timelines ahead. In the first, the viewer scrolls away. The story ends here, lost to the entropic chaos of the feed. In the second, the viewer exerts a mere 0.5 newtons of force. The connection is solidified. The production of future chapters is guaranteed. The choice is not merely about support, it is a tactical decision to ensure the survival of the story itself. Do not hesitate. Correct the timeline. Subscribe! Back to the story. The signal from Legba's fried deck didn't just die. It screamed across the Voodoo Boy's private subnet like a dying star. Deep within the databanks beneath the Baddies Hotel, Placide watched the telemetry streams shatter. He was a mountain of a man, his trench coat struggling to contain a frame reinforced with military-grade muscle weave. He stood before a wall of monitors, his eyes hollowed out by years of deep diving beyond the BLACKWALL, narrowing into slits. "Report," he rumbled. His voice was a low-frequency tremor that vibrated the loose cables hanging from the ceiling. Legba is flatlined, not dead, but his cortex is scrambled. A netrunner replied, fingers flying across a holographic interface. He tried to jack into the intruder, The feedback loop melted his chipset. "Look at this logs, Placide." Placide leaned in. The data wasn't the usual jagged, chaotic mess of a failed ECE breach. It was a perfect, devastatingly smooth sine wave of pure energy. "No corpo ICE does that," Placide muttered. "Arasaka burns you. Militech traps you." This just overwhelmed him with existence. "Is it an AI? Did the BLACKWALL leak?" "Worse," Placide said, straightening up. He grabbed a heavy kinetic shotgun from the rack. "It is a vessel, a container for something infinite. If we crack it open, if we can harvest that code, we bypass the BLACKWALL entirely. We do not need Alt Cunningham. We do not need the relic." He tapped his comms link. "Brigitte, we have a target. Code red. Mobilize the heavy cadre. No quick hacks. Use kinetics. Use EMPs. We take the body intact." Astro walked the desolate stretch of road toward the Dogtown gate. The sun was setting, casting long, bruised shadows across the crumbling facades of the resort district. The wind whipped dust devils around his red boots. He stopped. His auditory sensors, calibrated to detect the shifting of tectonic plates, picked up the click of a safety disengaging 3 blocks away. Then another. Then the hum of a heavy combat drone spooling up its rotors. Hostile detection, multiple vectors. Circlement, complete. From the shadows of the abandoned Glimmer Park, figures emerged. They didn't look like the scavengers from the trash heap. These were professionals. They wore long coats and digital ghillie suits that shimmered, trying to confuse his optical sensors. Their eyes glowed with the eerie, synchronized light of a neural network link. The Voodoo Boys. "Stop!" Placide's voice boomed from a loudspeaker mounted on a rusted lamppost. "Do not move. Submission is mandatory." Astro looked up at the speaker, then down at the ring of soldiers tightening around him. There were 20 of them, heavily armed, smart weapons that could curve bullets. "I do not wish to fight," Astro said. He raised his hands, palms open. "I am just passing through." "Fire!" Placide ordered. The air erupted. This was not the chaotic spray of the scavengers. This was a calculated kill box. 4 smart rifles fired simultaneously, the micro-missile rounds curving through the air to target Astro's joints, knees, elbows, neck. At the same time, an EMP grenade was launched, detonating in a silent, blue-white sphere of ionization directly above his head. Impact. The EMP washed over him. For a standard cyborg or a modern android, this would have been a death sentence. Systems would reboot, optics would fry, muscles would lock. Astro's internal electronic brain registered the surge. It was a significant spike in voltage. System check, voltage regulation, active. Excess energy, rerouted to auxiliary capacitors. He didn't shut down. He didn't even blink. The surge merely tickled his core. The smart bullets struck his plating. Ping, ping, ping. They flattened against his skin like raindrops hitting a windshield, falling harmlessly to the pavement. The kinetic force was substantial, enough to shatter concrete, but Astro's center of gravity adjusted instantly, rooting him to the ground with magnetic stabilizers. The smoke cleared. Astro stood there, the blue sparks of the EMP fading from his shoulders. He looked disappointed. "That was dangerous," Astro said. "You could have hurt a bystander." Placide, watching from a tactical feed on a rooftop nearby, felt a chill that had nothing to do with his cooling system. "He ate the EMP," Placide whispered. "Impossible. Switch to heavy ordnance. Bring down the hammer." A heavy transport drone buzzed over the buildings, dropping a modified loader bot, a hulking industrial exosuit retrofitted with a hydraulic piledriver arm. It landed with a cratering impact 10 meters in front of Astro. The pilot inside the suit roared, charging forward. The piledriver piston primed, ready to deliver 20 tons of force, enough to punch through the blast doors of a bank vault. Astro sighed, a small, sad sound. The mech swung. The piston fired with a deafening crack. Astro caught it, one hand. He didn't brace himself. He didn't slide back. He simply stopped the motion of the multi-ton hydraulic arm mid-stroke. The physics of it were nauseating to watch. The sudden stop should have ripped the mech apart. The pilot inside screamed as his controls locked up. Astro looked at the massive metal fist held in his small, rounded palm. He squeezed. Creak, snap, whine. The industrial steel of the piledriver crumbled. Astro twisted his wrist, and the entire arm of the mech sheared off at the shoulder joint. Sparks showered down like fireworks. He tossed the severed limb aside. It crashed through a brick wall. "Please," Astro said, his voice amplified now, shaking the glass in the windows of the hotel across the street. "Go home to your families." Placide saw the readings. The boy wasn't even using 1% of his output. This wasn't a fight. It was an insect attacking a hurricane. "Retreat!" Placide hissed into the comms. "Fall back to the crypt. Seal the tunnels. We cannot fight this in the open." The Voodoo Boys melted back into the shadows, their discipline breaking for just a second as they fled the monster that looked like a child. Astro stood alone in the street again. He dusted off his hands, but the silence didn't return. High above in the darkened sky, the clouds parted. A sleek, matte black AV, Aerodyne vehicle, descended silently, its engines humming with a distinct, expensive pitch. It didn't bear the marks of a gang. The side door slid open. A woman stepped out onto the ramp, hovering 20 feet above him. She wore a white suit, sharp and immaculate. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her eyes were not cybernetic, but cold, calculating human eyes. "Impressive," she said. Her voice was projected clearly. "The Voodoo Boys are pests, but you are something else entirely." Astro floated up, levitating without visible thrust, until he was eye level with her. "Who are you?" he asked. "I represent Militech," the woman said, smiling a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "My name is Meredith Stout, and I think you and I have a lot to discuss about upgrades." Astro tilted his head. He sensed no weapons on her, but his threat analysis spiked higher than it had with the entire Voodoo Boys gang. "I do not need upgrades," Astro said. "I need a friend." Meredith's smile widened, predatory and sharp. "In Night City, sweetie," she said, extending a hand. "That's the most expensive upgrade of all. The interior of the Militech Manticore." AV smelled of lavender and recycled oxygen, a sharp, sterile contrast to the rotting seaweed stench of Pacifica. Astro sat on the plush, genuine leather seat. His red boots dangled inches above the floor. He looked small here, surrounded by the matte black tactical gear of Stout's personal security detail. Two heavily modified solos sat opposite him, their faces impassive chrome masks, hands hovering near the constitutional arms slung across their chests. Meredith Stout sat next to him, crossing her legs. She held a crystal glass of synth champagne. "You have a name, little one?" she asked. Her voice was smooth, a practice frequency designed to disarm hostile negotiations. "Adam," he replied. He looked out the reinforced window as the sprawling favelas of Pacifica shrank beneath him, replaced by the glittering geometric cancer of the city center. "Adam," Meredith tasted the word. "Unique. Is that a serial number? A designation?" "It is my name," Astro said. He turned his large eyes toward her. "Scan_complete.exe. Subject, Meredith Stout." Heart rate, 85 beats per minute, elevated. Pupil dilation, 15%, arousal/greed. Pheromone markers, cortisol, adrenaline, and ambition. You are afraid, Astro stated calmly. Meredith froze mid-sip. The glass didn't tremble. She was too disciplined for that. But her eyes tightened at the corners. The microscopic twitch of the orbicularis oculi muscle betrayed her. Afraid? Of a child? She laughed, icy and brittle. I don't get afraid, Adam. I get results. I'm just concerned for your safety. Night City eats things that are different. You need protection. You need structure. You want me to fight for you, Astro said. It wasn't a question. Meredith set the glass down on the magnetic table with a sharp click. The mass slipped, just a fraction. I want you to help us maintain order, she corrected. Arasaka, the ones who attacked you, they want to enslave this world. Militech fights for freedom, for the NUSA. With your power, we could end the war. We could stop the suffering. It was a lie, or rather, it was a corporate truth, a carefully curated slice of reality where freedom meant market dominance. Astro looked at her. He didn't see a villain. He saw a woman trapped in a system that demanded ruthlessness as the price of survival. He felt a pang of pity. I will not hurt people, he said softly. We'll see, Meredith murmured, tapping a command into her personal link. The AV didn't head for the Militech tower. Instead, it banked hard toward the northern Badlands, descending into a heavily fortified compound surrounded by microwave fences and automated turret towers. Location identified, Militech R&D Proving Grounds, Sector 4. They landed on a concrete pad. A team of technicians in white hazmat suits swarmed the vehicle before the ramp even lowered. They carried scanners, thick cables, and suppression restraints. Just a checkup, Meredith said, guiding Astro down the ramp with a hand on his shoulder. Her grip was firm, possessing the subtle tension of a jailer. We need to understand your physiology, to help you. They led him into a hangar that smelled of ozone and hot metal. In the center was a diagnostic cradle, a massive rig of sensors and clamps, usually reserved for testing tank chassis. Astro stepped onto the platform. He didn't resist. He wanted to understand them as much as they wanted to understand him. Stay still, a lead technician barked, typing furiously on a console. Initiating deep dive scan, trying to locate the bios. A laser grid swept over Astro's body. On the monitors above, the Militech engineers stared in confusion. Ma'am, the tech whispered, sweat beading on his forehead. I'm not getting readings. No cyberware ID, no neuroport. His internal composition, it's solid. There's no organic tissue. But the energy output, it's fluctuating like a heartbeat. Is he a full Borg? Meredith demanded. No, it's nanotechnology on a scale we've only theorized. Every cell is a machine. Every machine is a cell. He's perfect. Meredith's eyes gleamed. Weapon systems? Unknown. He has ports, but they don't match our jacks. Wake him up, Meredith ordered. Live fire test. Release the drones. The hangar lights turned red. Klaxons blared. Astro looked around as the blast doors at the far end of the hangar slid open. 3 Militech Wyvern combat drones hovered out. These weren't the clumsy Arasaka interceptors. These were hunter killers, equipped with plasma casters and monomolecular blades. Adam, Meredith's voice echoed over the PA system. Show us what you can do. Neutralize the targets. Astro stood motionless. No. If you don't destroy them, they will destroy you, Meredith threatened coolly. Defense protocol, Adam. Survival of the fittest. She signaled the tech. Execute. The drone shrieked, diving in a coordinated phalanx. The lead drone fired a plasma bolt. Astro stepped to the side. The bolt scorched the floor where he had been standing, melting the concrete into glass. He didn't fire back. He didn't engage his arm cannon. He simply danced. It was a display of aerial acrobatics that defied the laws of inertia. He weaved through the plasma fire like a leaf caught in a gale, but with total conscious control. He slipped under a blade swipe, somersaulted over a chassis, and pirouetted through a hail of gunfire. "He's mocking us," the tech shouted. "He's faster than their targeting computers." "Increase aggression," Meredith snapped. "Overclock them." The drones surged, their engines whining as they pushed past their safety limits. They converged on Astro, creating a kill box of spinning blades. Astro stopped dodging. He hovered in the center of the storm, motionless. As the three drones struck simultaneously, he emitted a pulse. Not an EMP, not a weapon. He projected a sound. It was a specific frequency, calculated instantly by his electronic brain to match the resonant frequency of the Wyvern drone's stabilization gyros. The sound was felt in the teeth of everyone in the observation deck. The drones began to vibrate. The vibration compounded, growing violently, exponentially in milliseconds. Bolts rattled loose. Optics cracked. The delicate internal circuitry shattered under the harmonic resonance. The three drones fell out of the air, clattering to the floor in useless heaps of smoking junk. Not a single shot fired by Astro, just pure physics. Silence in the control room. Astro looked up at the glass observation window. He could see Meredith. He could see the hunger in her face replace the fear. "I told you!" Astro's voice projected into the room, bypassing the intercoms and vibrating the glass itself. "I am not a weapon." "Secure him!" Meredith screamed, slamming her hand on the console. "Gas the room! Neurotoxin! Shut him down!" Vents opened in the hangar floor. Thick, green gas hissed out. A nerve agent designed to liquefy the brain of a Borg or kill a human instantly. Astro stood in the cloud. He analyzed the chemical composition. VX7 nerve agent, lethal to biologicals, corrosive to cheap polymers. He inhaled deeply. His internal fusion reactor flared. He superheated the air inside his own lungs, breaking the chemical bonds of the toxin, neutralizing it instantly. He exhaled a puff of harmless steam. He looked at the blast doors. They were reinforced titanium, 2 feet thick. He walked toward them. "He's trying to breach," the tech yelled. "Turrets active." Ceiling-mounted heavy machine guns dropped down. They opened fire, 20-millimeter depleted uranium rounds. Astro didn't even slow down. He extended one arm. His hand retracted, and for the first time, the citizens of this dark future saw the truth. His arm transformed. The smooth skin peeled back to reveal the gleaming muzzle of a laser cannon. He didn't fire at the turrets. He fired at the door lock mechanism. A beam of pure, coherent light, blue, white, and blinding, erupted. The sound was a sharp thwack of air being ionized. The 3-foot thick steel lock vaporized instantly. Molten metal splashed onto the floor. Astro kicked the door. The massive slab of titanium, weighing 10 tons, flew off its hinges as if it were made of cardboard. It tumbled out into the desert sunlight, crushing a parked Jeep. Astro walked out of the smoke. He didn't look back at Meredith Stout. He didn't look back at the terrified technicians. He launched. A sonic boom cracked over the Badlands as he shot into the sky, leaving a trail of white vapor. In the control room, Meredith Stout slumped into her chair. She stared at the empty hangar, at the millions of dollars of destroyed hardware, and the hole in her fortress. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably now. "Get me Arasaka Tower," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Get me Jenkins. Get me anyone. We have a problem." The breach at the Militech proving grounds didn't just ring an alarm. It shattered the fragile piece of the corporate ecosystem. The shock waves traveled at the speed of light through fiber optic cables, hitting the desk of the most dangerous woman in Night City's legal jurisdiction. In the armory of MaxTac, the Maximum Force Tactical Division, Lieutenant Melissa Rory sat on a bench press, casually lifting 400 pounds of raw iron. Her arms, reinforced with sleek, high-tensile carbon fiber, didn't even tremble. "Lieutenant," the dispatch officer's hologram flickered into existence. He looked terrified. "We have an Omega-level event. Suspect is confirmed as the Iron Child. He just kicked a blast door off a Militech bunker." Melissa racked the weights. The metal clanged, a heavy final sound. She sat up, sweat glistening on her synthetic skin. Her eyes, modified Kiroshi optics with predatory tracking subroutines, dilated. She had been bored for months. Cyber psychos were messy, predictable animals. They just screamed and slashed. "Casualties?" she asked. "Zero, ma'am. That's the weird part. He dismantled the drones with sound. He ignored the gas. He's headed towards the Badlands." Melissa stood up. She walked to her locker and pulled out her mantis blades. They weren't the standard issue. They were thermal-charged monowire edges capable of slicing through diamond glass. "Spool up the AV," she whispered, a smile touching her lips that was more shark than human. "And authorize the heavy suppression team. If he's that strong, maybe he'll finally last more than 5 minutes." The sun was bleeding out over the horizon, painting the rocky desert of the Badlands in shades of bruised purple and ochre. Astro descended. He didn't land with a boom this time. He drifted down like a dandelion seed, his fusion drive humming a lullaby. He was tired. Not physically. His reactor was operating at 98% efficiency, but his logic centers were weary. The world was loud, aggressive, and confusing. Everyone he met tried to shoot him, dissect him, or buy him. He touched down near a cluster of tents and modified vehicles nestled against a windbreak of boulders. The smell here was different. Dust, sagebrush, gasoline, and chili? He walked toward the light of a campfire. 3 figures stepped out from behind a heavy Thornton Mackinac truck. They held rifles, but they didn't raise them immediately. They were nomads, the Aldecaldos. "Hold it right there, Chrome Jock," a woman's voice rang out, sharp, commanding, but lacking the cruel malice of the city. Pan Am Palmer stepped into the firelight. She wore her signature jacket, her hair pulled back, a massive sniper rifle slung over her shoulder. Beside her stood Mitch and Scorpion, veterans of the Unification War, their eyes scanning the boy for weapons. "I am not a Chrome Jock," Astro said quietly. "I am Adam." Panam squinted. She looked at the boy's chest, the smooth, seamless plating. She looked at his boots. "You're the one on the news," Mitch said, lowering his rifle slightly. "The one who caught the train. Saka and Militech are tearing the city apart looking for you." "I know," Astro said. He looked at the fire. "May I sit? I do not require food, but the heat is pleasant for my sensors." The nomads exchanged glances. In the Badlands, hospitality was a survival trait, but so was paranoia. "You bring any heat with you?" Panam asked, scanning the sky. "No, I flew fast. They could not follow." Panam studied his face. She prided herself on reading people, on smelling the bullshit on a corpo from a mile away. She looked at Astro and saw a blank slate, a mirror reflecting the world's cruelty back at it. "Sit," Panam said, gesturing to a crate. "But you try anything funny, and I'll put a round through your power core before you can blink." Astro sat. "Thank you." Scorpion, the clan's tech specialist, moved closer. his mechanical eye whirling as he scanned Astro. Panam, look at his readings. No thermal exhaust, no radiation. He's running cold fusion. Miniature cold fusion. That's lost tech. That's holy grail stuff. I don't care if he's a toaster oven, Panam grunted, pouring a cup of synthetic coffee and drinking it herself. He's a kid, a weird metal kid. My generator's making a noise, Astro said suddenly. Your generator. He pointed to the camp's main power unit, a chugging, smoking diesel beast that was clearly on its last legs. Yeah, well, parts are scarce, Mitch shrugged. It's barely keeping the water purifiers running. Astro stood up. Before they could stop him, he walked to the generator. He placed his hand on the rusted casing. His eyes glowed a soft blue. Diagnostic, fuel injection timing off by 40 milliseconds. Cylinder 3 misfiring. Output efficiency, 32%. May I? Astro asked. Without waiting, his index finger extended into a precision tool, a high-torque microdriver. He moved with a blur of speed. Zip, click, whir. He adjusted the timing belt. He recalibrated the fuel mixture manually. He tightened the loose coupling on the intake. The generator stuttered, then purred. The smoky exhaust vanished. The lights in the camp flared brighter, steady and clean. Efficiency increased to 89%, Astro reported, retracting his finger. Scorpion's jaw dropped. He just fixed a 50-year-old diesel engine with his finger in 3 seconds. Panam looked at the lights, then back at the boy. Her expression softened. The hard shell of the Nomad leader cracked just enough to let the human through. All right, Adam, she said, cracking a rare, genuine smile. You earn your keep. Welcome to the family. For tonight, anyway. While the desert embraced the boy, the darkest corners of the city were waking up to his existence. Deep inside the Totentans Club, the best was heavy enough to stop a human heart. This was the territory of Maelstrom, a gang of violent transhumanists who replaced their faces with optics and their skin with chrome. Brick sat on his throne of scrap metal, watching the footage of the Militech breach on a loop. But he wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the shadows. His face was a crater of red optical sensors, spider-like and horrifying. It was Dum-Dum, but he was trembling with religious ecstasy. Did you see it, Brick? Dum-Dum rasped, inhaling from a black lace inhaler. The perfection, the synthesis. It's a weapon, Dum-Dum. High-end military, Brick grunted. No! Dum-Dum slammed his fist on the table. Look at the movement. No lag. No humanity cost. He is the singularity. He is what we carve our flesh to become. Around the club, other Maelstrom gangers stopped dancing. The music didn't stop, but the mood shifted from aggression to reverence. They looked at the frozen image of Astro on the screens, the Iron Child. To them, he wasn't a target. He was a messiah. We must find him, Dum-Dum whispered, his optics cycling rapidly. We must bring him here. We must upload him. If we commune with him, we become gods. And if he refuses, Brick asked, loading his revolver. Then we disassemble him, Dum-Dum said, his voice dropping to a devout growl. And we take the divinity piece by piece. Incoming call. Regional Jones. Regina. Connection secured via proxy. V, it's Regina. Listen, I'm picking up chatter on the police bans that would make your hair turn white. MaxTac has just authorized a full Borg suppression team. And get this, Netwatch just flagged an IP address in the Badlands that doesn't exist in any database. Everyone is converging on the desert, V. If you're going after the kid, you better move fast. You're about to be in the middle of a war zone. The desert night was cool, a stark contrast to the radioactive heat of the day. The only sound in the Aldecaldo camp was the crackle of the fire and the rhythmic, newly efficient hum of the generator Astro had repaired. Astro sat on a fuel crate, his legs swinging. He was watching the stars. His internal star charts were trying to align the constellations, but the smog and orbital debris made it difficult. He felt lonely. Then the roar of an engine shattered the peace. Not a rover and not a tank. It was a high-performance engine, tuned for city streets, but screaming in rebellion against the sand. A Quadra-Turbo R VTEC drifted around the perimeter of the camp, kicking up a wall of dust before skidding to a halt. Panam was up instantly, her sniper rifle leveled. Who invited the Merc? The gull-wing door popped open. V stepped out. She looked exhausted, the flickering glitch of the relic causing her to stumble slightly before she caught herself on the car door. She wore her samurai jacket, the collar turned up against the wind. "Easy, Panam," V called out, hands raised but away from her weapons. "Rogue sent me. Said you picked up a stray." V walked into the firelight. Her eyes, cybernetic Hiroshi optics, locked instantly on the small figure by the fire. Scan, error, target unrecognized, threat level, catastrophic/unknown. V felt a sudden, violent lurch in her brain. The world glitched blue. Johnny Silverhand materialized next to her, leaning against a stack of tires, smoking a virtual cigarette. Johnny took off his aviators. He stared at the boy. For the first time in V's memory, the rocker boy didn't look angry. He looked haunted. "V," Johnny said, his voice echoing in her skull. "That ain't a Borg. That ain't Chrome. Look at him. He's clean." "Who are you?" Astro asked. He stood up. He looked at V, and then his eyes shifted slightly to the left, directly at the empty space where Johnny stood. V froze. You can see him?" "The man with the metal arm?" Astro tilted his head. "He is a projection of your neural subcortex, a digital ghost. He is very sad." Johnny dropped his cigarette. "Well, shit. The toaster can read minds." "I am V," the Merc said, stepping closer. "And we got a problem, kid. Every heavy hitter in Night City is 5 minutes out. You kicked a hornet's nest." "I only wanted to help," Astro said. "That's the worst thing you can do in this city," V replied grimly. "Helping people gets you killed. Now we need to get you out of..." Skrik! The horizon erupted. It wasn't the disciplined hum of Militech or the heavy thrum of Arasaka. It was a cacophony of modified engines, screaming guitars, and psychotic laughter. A jagged line of headlights crested the dune to the east. Motorcycles, dozens of them. They were decorated with skulls, LEDs, and flayed skin. Maelstrom. "Defensive positions!" Panam screamed, racking the bolt of her rifle. "Mitch! Scorpion! Get the turret!" The Aldecaldo scrambled. V drew her pistol, the Malorian Arms 3516, the heavy recoil spring clicking into place. "They're not shooting," V noted, squinting. The Maelstrom convoy didn't open fire. They encircled the camp, a swirling vortex of chrome and dust. Then they stopped in unison. The leader, a hulking monstrosity named Brick, stepped off his bike. But it was the smaller figure beside him, Dum Dum, who spoke. He held up a device, a tech scepter made of twisted circuit boards. "We have come!" Dum Dum shrieked, his voice modulated into a digital scratch. "We have come for the Omniscia, the perfect machine." The Maelstrom gangers began to chant, a low, guttural binary code. 01001001. Flesh is weak, chrome is eternal. "They think you're a god," V muttered. "That's worse than them wanting to kill you." "Hand him over," Brick roared, leveling a tech shotgun. "Give us the vessel, and the meat bags live. Refuse, and we harvest you for parts." Astro stepped past V. "Kid, don't," V warned, reaching out. "These guys are psychos. They don't negotiate." Astro walked to the edge of the firelight. He looked at the 50 heavily armed cultists. He saw their eyes, red, glowing, stripped of humanity. He saw their limbs, replaced with blades and pistons. "You are hurting yourselves," Astro said, his voice projecting over the roar of the idling bikes. "Why do you replace your bodies? Why do you hate what you are?" "Because we seek perfection," a ganger screamed, revving his engine. He charged. He popped a wheelie, his bike's front tires spinning with razor spikes, aiming to decapitate the boy. Time dilation, engage. V activated her Sandevistan. The world slowed to a crawl. The colors bled out into grayscale. V moved to intercept, raising her gun. But she was too slow. In the suspended animation of the Sandevistan, V saw Astro move. He didn't blur. He simply existed in a different coordinate. Astro stepped through the path of the bike. He placed a hand on the front tire's axle. Physics calculation, angular momentum versus static friction. He stopped the wheel. Instantly, the laws of physics demanded that the bike flip. The rider, carried by momentum, flew over the handlebars. Astro caught him, mid-air, one hand on the ganger's chest plate. He set the man down gently on the sand while the bike crashed into a boulder behind them. The Sandevistan wore off. Time snapped back with a nauseating lurch. The ganger blinked, finding himself standing unharmed in front of the boy he tried to kill. "Go home," Astro said. For a second, the Maelstrom gang was stunned. Their optics whirred, trying to process the data. He offers mercy," Dum-Dum screamed, ecstatic. "He is the one. Seize him. Upload his mind to the network." The chanting turned into a war cry. The entire Maelstrom line surged forward, mantis blades extending, monowires whipping, tech weapons charging. "Oh, for fuck's sake," Johnny sighed. "Open fire," Panam yelled. The night exploded. The Aldecaldos unleashed hell. Mitch's turret chugged heavy rounds. Panam's sniper rifle cracked like thunder, blowing holes in engine blocks. V was a whirlwind of death, dashing between cover, her pistol barking lethal rounds that punched through cyber skulls. But there were too many of them. A Maelstrom centaur, a massive, four-legged cyborg, broke through the line. It ignored the bullets pinging off its heavy armor. It charged straight for Panam, raising a hydraulic hammer. "Panam!" V shouted, reloading. She couldn't reach her in time. Panam looked up, death descending. Whoosh! A streak of light. Astro hit the centaur. He didn't punch it. He flew into it, shoulder first. The impact sounded like a car crash. The 2-ton cyborg was lifted off the ground and thrown, actually thrown, 30 feet backward. It landed in a heap of sparking metal. Astro hovered over Panam. His eyes were no longer soft. They were glowing with a fierce, protective white light. "Do not touch my friends." He raised his arm. The skin retracted. The arm cannon emerged. But he didn't fire a laser. He adjusted the output aperture. Mode, stun pulse, wide dispersal. He fired. A ring of blue energy expanded from his arm, a shock wave of concussive force. It hit the front line of the Maelstrom assault. 10 gangers were lifted off their feet and blasted backward into the sand. Their systems overloaded, their bodies unconscious before they hit the ground. The battlefield fell silent. The remaining Maelstrom members backed away. They looked at their fallen comrades, alive, groaning, but defeated. They looked at the boy hovering in the air, smoke drifting from his arm cannon. He spares the unworthy, Dum-Dum whispered. terrified and awed. We are not worthy. Retreat! Brick screamed, terrified that the next shot would be lethal. Back to the Totentans! The gangers scrambled for their bikes. It wasn't a retreat, it was a rout. They fled into the dark, their engines whining in fear. Astro lowered himself to the ground. His arm transformed back into a hand. He turned to Panam. "Are you injured?" Panam stared at him. She looked at the dented centaur. She looked at V. I'm good," Panam breathed. "Holy shit, I'm good." V holstered her weapon. She walked up to Astro. She looked down at him. "You're not just a weapon, kid," V said, a grudging respect in her voice. "You're a damn paladin." "Paladin?" Astro tilted his head. "A knight," Johnny said, appearing next to Astro and crouching down to look him in the eye. "A dumb, shiny knight in a world full of dragons." Suddenly, Astro stiffened. His ears, auditory sensors, swiveled toward the sky. "More are coming," Astro said. His voice lost its warmth. "And these, they are not confused. They are hunters." High above, the distinct, terrifying whine of an AV-4 tactical dropship cut through the clouds. The side doors were painted with a logo that made even V's blood run cold. MaxTac. "Well," V said, drawing her weapon again, "out of the frying pan." The downwash from the MaxTac AV-4 pressed the desert sand into a suffocating, blinding sheet of glass. The landing gear didn't even touch the ground before 4 figures dropped from the bay, hitting the earth with the heavy, hydraulic thud of walking tanks. They were the apex, the monsters sent to kill monsters. At the front stood Lieutenant Melissa Rory. Her uniform was less law enforcement and more funeral shroud. Her arms were split open, the thermal mantis blades glowing a hateful, cherry red, hissing as they ionized the night air. Her eyes were wide, dilated, swimming in a cocktail of combat stims and sanctioned psychosis. V racked the slide of her Malorian. "Panam, get the clan back. I'll take the heavy. You flush the support." "Negative," Astro said. The boy stepped in front of V. He didn't look back. He raised one hand, palm facing V, pushing her gently but with the immovability of a mountain. "V, you cannot fight her," Astro stated. His voice was devoid of fear, calibrated to pure logic. "She is moving at a synaptic frequency that exceeds your reflex boosters. If you engage, probability of your survival is 4.3%. "I've killed Smasher's goons before, kid," V growled, though her hand shook slightly. The sheer pressure radiating from Rory was making her relic scream. "She is not a goon," Astro said softly. "She is a victim, and I will not let you kill her. Please, protect the family." Johnny materialized next to Astro, looking at the MaxTac lieutenant. "Kid's right, V. That bitch is redlining. She's a walking cyberpsychosis event. Let the atom bomb handle it." V gritted her teeth, then lowered her gun. "Don't get scrapped, Chrome Boy." Astro walked forward, alone. The desert floor between them was 50 meters of silence. Melissa Rory twitched. Her neck cracked. She smiled, revealing teeth filed into points. "Unauthorized tech," she whispered, the external speakers in her throat amplifying the wet, eager sound. "Beautiful, clean. I'm going to open you up and see what makes you tick." "You are in pain," Astro said. He scanned her. Subject, Melissa Rory. Dopamine levels, critical. Cortisol, critical. Neural degradation, 88%. Your implants, they hurt you. Why do you keep them? "Because," Rory laughed, a sound like tearing metal, "it makes the killing quiet." She moved. To the Aldecaldos watching from the ridge, she simply vanished. She activated a military-grade Sandevistan warp dancer. Time for her slowed to a crawl. In her perception, the dust motes hung suspended in the air. She dashed forward, covering the 50 meters in 0.02 seconds, her thermal blades scissoring toward the boy's neck, intended to decapitate him before his neurons could even fire. She swung. Clang! The sound was not the wet slice of meat, nor the crunch of bone. It was the ringing of a bell that shattered the windows of the AV hovering above. Rory's eyes widened. In the frozen time of the Sandevistan, the boy had moved. He hadn't dodged. He had raised his left forearm. The thermal blade, capable of slicing through tank armor, was stopped dead against his skin. The red-hot metal sizzled against his plating, but it didn't cut. It didn't even scratch. Astro looked at her. In the hyper-accelerated time frame, his expression was sad. Too slow, he said. The Sandevistan disengaged. Reality snapped back with a sonic boom caused by their collision. Rory screamed in frustration, unleashing a flurry of strikes, a whirlwind of red light. Left, right, thrust, cross. A human would have been minced meat. Astro parried every single blow with his bare hands. He moved with an economy of motion that was terrifyingly precise. He tapped her wrists, deflected her elbows, nudged her trajectory just enough so the blades sliced empty air. Analysis. Opponent relies on speed and aggression. Structural weakness, elbow hydraulic servos. Rory roared, her combat stims flooding her system. She leaped into the air, bringing both blades down in an executioner's arc. Astro didn't block this time. He vanished. He reappeared instantly behind her. "Sleep," he whispered. He reached out. He didn't strike her head. That would kill her. He didn't crush her spine. He placed 2 fingers on the back of her neck, directly over the interface port for her Sandevistan and spinal nervous system. Precise electrical discharge, 50,000 volts, low amperage. He pulsed his own energy into her neural network. Rory stiffened midair. Her eyes rolled back. The electricity bypassed her cybernetic defenses, overloading the synaptic relays that kept her conscious. Her blades retracted instantly. She fell. Astro caught her before she hit the ground. He held the feared MaxTac lieutenant in his arms, looking like a child holding a broken doll. The other 3 MaxTac officers raised their heavy assault rifles. They were drilled for every scenario, trained to kill gods. But they had just watched their commander, the fastest thing in Night City, get dismantled in 10 seconds by an unarmed boy who hadn't even engaged his thrusters. "Put her down!" the sergeant screamed, his voice cracking. "Target lock! Fire on!" "Stand down!" V shouted, stepping out from the shadows. Her Malorian aimed at the sergeant's head. "Look at him! He didn't kill her! He caught her!" The MaxTac officers hesitated. They looked at the readout on their HUDs. Rory's vitals were stable. Unconscious, rebooting, but alive. Astro gently laid Melissa on the sand. He stood up and looked at the officers. "She needs a doctor," Astro said calmly. "Not a mechanic. Her mind is overheating. Please help her." The sergeant lowered his rifle. The logic didn't track. Anomalies killed. Cyber psychos slaughtered. This thing showed mercy. "What are you?" the sergeant whispered. Astro looked up at the stars, then back at V and the Nomads. "I am a friend," Astro said. Suddenly, V's comms buzzed. It was an encrypted channel. Direct line. "V, this is Mr. Hands." The fixer's voice was smooth, oily, and urgent. "I don't know who your new Chrome friend is, but you need to get him out of the Badlands. Now. Netwatch just authorized a BLACKWALL breach protocol. They aren't trying to catch him anymore. They're trying to delete him." V cursed. "Astro, we're leaving. Now!" Astro nodded. He engaged his jets, hovering 2 feet off the ground. Where are we going? V jumped into the quadra, the engine roaring to life. She looked at the boy who had just humbled MaxTac without scratching the paint. To the only place in this city where the unexpected is the norm, V grinned, though her eyes were serious. We're going to Lizzie's. I know a techie who needs to see this. The ride back into the city was a blur of neon streaking across the wet pavement. V drove with the desperate precision of someone running out of time, weaving the quadra through the maglev traffic of Watson. Astro sat in the passenger seat. He didn't look at the road. He was staring at V. Your biochip, Astro said, the dashboard lights reflecting in his large eyes. It is rewriting your neural pathways. The data integrity is aggressive, like a virus, but it has a personality. Yeah, tell me something I don't know, kid. V grunted, shifting gears. It's a death sentence. Bullet in the brain gave it a jump start. Hey, Johnny Silverhand materialized in the back seat, leaning forward between them. I'm not a virus, I'm a revolution. Astro turned his head 180 degrees, a mechanical rotation that made V flinch, to look at Johnny. You are not a revolution, Astro corrected gently. You are a memory of pain. You are shouting because you are afraid of being forgotten. Johnny leaned back, stunned into silence. He took a drag of his imaginary cigarette. Damn, V, the toaster's got teeth. V pulled the car up to the curb outside Lizzie's bar. The pink neon baseball bat rotated lazily above the entrance, casting a garish light on the Mox bouncers guarding the door. Hood up, V commanded. We keep your head down. Lizzie's is neutral ground, but word travels fast. They walked to the door. Rita Wheeler, the Mox bouncer with the plastic skin and the baseball bat, stepped in their path. V, you look like shit, Rita smirked. Then she looked at the small figure in the oversized hoodie. No kids. House rules. This ain't a daycare. He's with me, V said, voice low. And he ain't a kid. He's the package everyone's screaming about on the news. Rita's cyber eyes widened. She looked at the boy. Hello, Astro said from under the hood. I like your bat. It is very pink. Rita blinked. She stepped aside. Judy's in the basement. Don't start nothing, V. We just clean the carpets. The basement of Lizzie's was a cooler, quieter world. Servers hummed in the darkness. Brain dance wreaths hung from the ceiling like strange technological fruit. Judy Alvarez was hunched over her console, cigarette smoke curling around her green-dyed hair. She was scrubbing a scroll, editing raw emotional data from a BD. Judy, V called out. Judy spun around, frustration etched on her face. V, I told you I'm busy. Maiko is breathing down my neck about... She stopped. She saw the boy. Astro lowered his hood. Judy stood up slowly. As a premier techie, she knew hardware. She knew the difference between Kuroshi, Zetatech, and Arasaka. She looked at Astro and saw nothing she recognized. No seams, no ports, just a perfection that made the rest of the room look dirty. Is this him? Judy whispered. The one who flatlined MaxTac without firing a shot? He didn't flatline him, V said, hopping onto a desk. He put him in timeout. Judy, we need a scan. Netwatch is hunting him. They're talking about a BLACKWALL breach. The BLACKWALL? Judy paled. If they deploy an AI hunter. V, you brought a nuke into my server room. I am not a nuke, Astro said. He walked over to Judy's monitors. He looked at the raw code scrolling on her screens. It was a messy, corrupted brain dance file, a traumatic memory of a joy toy being assaulted. The data was jagged, full of red spikes of fear and pain. This data is hurting you, Astro said to Judy. Why do you immerse yourself in sadness? It's my job, kid. I edit out the bad stuff so the clients get a thrill. Judy sighed, crossing her arms. "I can fix it," Astro said. He didn't type. He didn't jack in. He simply reached out and touched the screen. Wireless interface, handshake complete. Data stream purified. On the screen, the jagged red spikes of trauma smoothed out. The code reorganized itself. The chaotic noise became a harmonious sine wave. In seconds, Astro had done a week's worth of editing. Judy stared at the monitor, her mouth open slightly. He just optimized the emotional rendering. In real time, without a deck. V, that's impossible. That's God code. "Warned you," V muttered. Suddenly, the lights in the basement turned crimson. The server racks let out a unified, high-pitched scream. The monitors flashed black, then displayed a single pulsing logo, a shield with a spider web. Netwatch. Priority 1, eradication. "They found us," Judy yelled, grabbing her deck. "They're pinging the local subnet. They're burning through my ice. Where are the shooters?" V drew her gun, aiming at the door. "Not shooters," Judy screamed. "Demons. They're uploading a BLACKWALL protocol directly into the room's infrastructure. They're trying to fry his brain." The air temperature in the room spiked 20 degrees in a second. Sparks showered from the ceiling. Astro stood in the center of the room. He clutched his head. Intrusion detected. Source: Netwatch Central Server, The Hague. Attack vector: BLACKWALL AI, class Hunter-Killer. For the first time, Astro looked in pain. This wasn't a physical blow he could catch. It was a digital poison, a sentient algorithm designed to eat consciousness. "Get out of his head!" Johnny shouted, swinging a phantom fist at the air. "I cannot block it," Astro gasped, falling to one knee. "It is hateful." The hologram projector on the table flickered to life. A face formed, featureless, geometric, terrifying. The avatar of the Netwatch agent. "Target identified," the avatar spoke, a voice of grinding static. "Anomaly Adam. You are a violation of the Turing treaties. Deletion commencing." Judy typed furiously. "I can't stop it. It's eating my firewalls like candy." Astro looked up. His eyes were flickering between brown and a terrifying void-like black. Then he made a choice. "You want to enter?" Astro whispered. "Okay." He dropped his mental shields. He didn't block the BLACKWALL hack. He invited it in. "Kid, no!" V screamed. Astro closed his eyes. System, deep dive. Location, the net. In the physical world, Astro went limp. But inside the digital realm, the space where the Netwatch agent was operating, a star was born. The Netwatch agent, sitting safely in a chair in Europe, watched his screens turn white. He expected to see the boy's code disintegrate. Instead, the boy appeared in the digital space. But he wasn't a collection of polygons. He was a giant, a titan of pure, blinding light, dwarfing the malicious AI codes swarming around him like flies. Astro reached out in the digital void. He grabbed the hunter-killer demon, a writhing mass of black snakes and red code. "You are broken," Astro's digital voice thundered across the global network. "I will repair you." He squeezed. The malicious code didn't die. It changed. The red turned to blue. The chaos turned to order. The killer. I stopped struggling and simply sat down, pacified. Back in Lizzie's basement, the monitors exploded. Not from a hack, but from the feedback loop of pure righteousness traveling back up the line. Astro gasped, his eyes snapping open. The red lights died. The Netwatch logo vanished. The servers spun down to a gentle hum. Silence. Judy stood up, shaking. Her expensive rig was smoking. "What?" Judy whispered. "What did you do?" "I introduced myself," Astro said, standing up. He looked tired. The man on the other side, his computer is broken now. He will not bother us for a while. V holstered her gun. She looked at the boy, then at the smoking ruin of Judy's equipment. "Judy," V said, "how much for the gear?" "Forget the gear," Judy said. Her eyes locked on Astro with a mix of scientific curiosity and genuine fear. "V, do you realize what just happened? He didn't just stop a hack. He healed a virus. That shouldn't be possible. Code doesn't have morality." "It does now," Johnny said, looking at Astro with a newfound wariness. Astro tugged on V's jacket. "V, I am hungry, not for food, but I need energy. That took a lot." V sighed, running a hand through her hair. "All right, one crisis at a time. We need a safe house, one off the grid, and I think I know just the heavy hitter to call. We're going to Embers. We're going to see Goro." "Takamura?" Johnny scoffed. "You're taking the super kid to the Arasaka Ronin?" "Bold strategy, Cotton. He's the only one who hates Arasaka as much as he loves honor," V said. "And right now, we need honor." The rendezvous point was not Embers. It was too exposed. Instead, Takamura chose the skeletal remains of a half-finished skyscraper directly opposite Arasaka Tower. The wind howled through the steel girders, carrying the scent of rain and impending violence. Goro Takamura stood by the edge, his coat whipping in the gale. He looked tired, disgraced. But when V and the boy landed on the platform, Astro carrying V gently through the air to avoid the elevator shafts, the old soldier straightened. He looked at Astro. He didn't see a machine. He saw the spirit of something ancient and lost. "You brought a child to a war," Takamura said, his voice grave. "He's the war," V corrected, checking her pistol. "Netwatch tried to burn him. He ate the virus. Takamura, we're done sneaking. We're done with thumb drives and evidence. We're going to the tower." Takamura looked at the monolith of black glass across the street. "To enter the tower is suicide. The security grid is impenetrable. Adam Smasher is the head of security." "Smasher," Astro repeated the name. "Database access restricted. Search public records/urban legends. Result: the Boogeyman. 96% cyborg, 4% sadism. He is a bad man," Astro noted. "He is not a man," Takamura said, checking his smart link. "He is a graveyard, and Arasaka has authorized his full deployment. If we go there, we do not fight guards. We fight the devil." Astro walked to the edge. He looked at the tower. He could see the servers deep inside. He could hear the hum of the Mikoshi mainframe, trapping the souls of the dead. "The souls are crying," Astro said softly. "We will set them free." He turned to V. "Get on my back." V blinked. "Excuse me?" "I can fly faster than the elevators. We are going to the top. Arasaka Tower, sub-basement level 74. The kennel." The room was freezing. Liquid nitrogen fog curled around the ankles of the technicians, who scurried like terrified rats. In the center of the room, suspended by thick chains and data cables, hung the Dione. It was not a suit. It was a walking fortress. The experimental Dragoon-class exoskeleton, outlawed by 3 international treaties. It stood 9 feet tall. The armor plating was a composite of depleted uranium and reactive shielding. And inside it, the torso of Adam Smasher was being inserted. "Sir," a lead engineer stammered, holding a data pad, "the neural load of the Dione is 400% above safe limits. It will burn out his cortex in 20 minutes. It's suicide." Smasher's optical cluster flared online, a crimson light that cut through the fog. "Safe limits," Smasher's voice ground out. It sounded like boulders crushing bones. "Safety is for meat. turn it on." "But turn it on!" The engineer slammed the lever. The reactor on the back of the suit screamed to life. The chains holding the suit snapped. Smasher hit the floor. The impact shook the foundation of the building. He flexed a hydraulic hand, the servos singing a song of absolute destruction. He didn't just feel strong, he felt like an extinction event. "Where is the toy?" Smasher rasped, his targeting systems locking onto a heat signature, rapidly ascending the outside of the tower. "I want to break it." The ascent. The windows of the CEO's office on the 100th floor shattered inward. Astro floated into the room, V clinging to his shoulders. He set her down gently on the plush carpet of Saburo Arasaka's office. "Express elevator," V wheezed, her equilibrium shot. "Warn me next time you break the sound barrier." The room was empty, too empty. "They knew we were coming." Takamura's voice crackled over V's comms. He was providing overwatch from the neighboring building. "V, I am detecting a massive energy spike coming from the atrium. It is off the charts." The floor began to vibrate. The heavy mahogany doors to the office didn't open. They disintegrated. A rocket-propelled grenade punched through the wood, detonating against Astro's chest. Boom. Smoke filled the room. V dove behind a desk, ears ringing. When the smoke cleared, Astro was still standing. He brushed soot off his shoulder. "That was rude," Astro said. From the smoke, a heavy, rhythmic thudding approached. Thum, thum, thum. Adam Smasher walked through the ruined doorway. He was monstrous. The Dione armor made him look like a tank given humanoid form. A multi-barreled rotary cannon was mounted on his shoulder. His right arm was a massive pneumatic pile bunker. His left held a smart shotgun the size of a motorcycle. "You look like a cut of fuckable meat," Smasher boomed, his voice amplified to deafening levels. He ignored V entirely, his optics locked on Astro. "So this is the anomaly. A doll? A little Pinocchio?" Astro floated up to eye level with the giant. The contrast was absurd. The pristine, rounded boy against the jagged war machine. "You have lost your heart," Astro said. He wasn't taunting, he was diagnosing. There is almost nothing left of the man named Adam. "Humanity is a weakness," Smasher roared. "Flesh is a crutch. I have evolved." Smasher didn't wait. He activated the Sandevistan. Apogee. To V, Smasher vanished. To Astro, Smasher moved fast. Very fast. Smasher closed the distance in a microsecond, the pile bunker on his right arm extending with explosive force, aiming to punch a hole through Astro's chest. Impact! The shockwave blew out the remaining windows. V was thrown against the wall by the air pressure alone. When V looked up, she expected to see scrap metal. Instead, she saw a stalemate. Astro had caught the pile bunker. His small hands were wrapped around the massive hydraulic piston. The floor beneath Astro cracked and cratered, the steel beams of the skyscraper groaning under the stress. But Astro did not move an inch backwards. Smasher's engines screamed. The Dione suit was outputting enough torque to lift an aircraft carrier. Astro held him in place. "You are strong," Astro admitted, his face straining slightly. "But you are heavy. You carry too much weight." "Die!" Smasher screamed. The shoulder cannon spun up. Bert! Thousands of high-explosive rounds poured into Astro at point-blank range. The explosions were blinding. Astro closed his eyes. He didn't block. He tanked it. The bullets flattened against his alloy skin, falling to the floor like hail. "My turn," Astro whispered. He let go of the piston and flew forward, through the hail of bullets. He drove his fist into Smasher's chest plate. It wasn't a lethal punch, it was a get-back punch. The sound was like a thunderclap. Adam Smasher, the unstoppable force, The legend of Night City was launched backward. He flew out of the office, through the atrium, and crashed through 3 consecutive reinforced concrete walls, finally embedding himself in the server room down the hall. V stood up, jaw dropped. You just ragdolled Smasher." "He is very durable," Astro said, shaking his hand. "That actually stung." From the hole in the wall, a roar echoed, a roar of pure, unadulterated rage. Smasher climbed out of the rubble. His armor was dented, sparks flying from his chest, but he wasn't down. If anything, he was faster now. The damage had disengaged his safety limiters. "Interesting," Smasher laughed, a glitchy, demonic sound. "Finally, a real fight." He deployed gravity well generators in his feet. He began to run up the walls, defying physics, missiles launching from his back battery. "V," Astro said, not taking his eyes off the monsters circling the room. "Find the access port. Free the souls in Mikoshi. I will keep the monster busy." "Busy?" V yelled, plugging into the access point. "You're gonna have to do more than keep him busy. That thing is eating the building." Astro clenched his fists. His jets flared white hot. "Then I will break him," Astro said, gently. The atrium of Arasaka Tower was no longer a symbol of corporate dominance. It was a cage match between 2 gods of metal and will. On the balcony overlooking the chaos, shielded by blast-proof polymer glass and a personal displacement field, stood Saburo Arasaka. He was not technically alive. His consciousness was projected into the body of his son, Yorinobu, a usurpation of flesh that few knew had taken place. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his face a mask of serene, terrifying curiosity. Beside him, Hanako Arasaka stood frozen, her usually impeccable composure cracking as the building shook. "Father," Hanako whispered, flinching as a stray missile detonated against the shield wall. "We must evacuate. The structural integrity of the upper floors is failing." "No," Saburo said. His voice was not the rash bark of Yorinobu, but the cold, ancient rasp of the Emperor. He watched the boy, the anomaly, weave through a storm of micro-missiles. "Look at it, Hanako. 100 years I have spent perfecting the soul killer. I sought to digitize the human spirit, but that thing, it has done the reverse. It has given a soul to a machine." Below them, the battle defied logic. Adam Smasher, encased in the Dione armor, was a blur of violence. He was moving faster than sound, the sonic booms of his movements shattering every pane of glass in a 3-block radius. He was using the gravity generators in his boots to run along the ceiling, raining down hellfire from his rotary cannon. "Die! Why won't you die?" Smasher screamed, his voice distorting into a digital screech. He dropped from the ceiling, activating the Arasaka 20 earthquake driver, a seismic pile driver built into his heel. Astro looked up. He didn't have time to dodge. The attack covered the entire floor. He crossed his arms. Defense mode. Absolute. Smasher landed. The impact was cataclysmic. The floor of the atrium didn't just crack, it liquefied. A shockwave of pulverized concrete and steel exploded outward, blowing out the walls of the tower. V, jacked into the Mikoshi access port in the corner, was thrown sideways, her cable snapping taut. "Jesus Christ, Astro!" Dust choked the air. The tower groaned, tilting precariously 5 degrees to the west. From the crater, Smasher rose, his red optics glowing in the gloom. He laughed, a wet, grinding sound. "Paste, nothing but paste." Then a blue light pierced the dust. Astro rose from the rubble. He was buried to his waist in debris. His shirt was gone, incinerated by the heat of the impact. His chest plate was exposed. gleaming white alloy. There was a scratch, a single long scratch across his heart. He looked at it. Then he looked at Smasher. "You broke the floor," Astro said. His voice was no longer sad. It was disappointed. "There are people working on the floors below. You could have killed them." "I don't care," Smasher roared, charging again. "Then I must stop you," Astro said. "For real." Astro's eyes shifted. The large, innocent pupils contracted. The iris turned from brown to a luminous, blinding white. He opened his chest panel. Saburo Arasaka leaned forward against the glass. "What is that energy reading?" It matches the sun." Inside Astro's chest, the Omega Factor core spun up. It wasn't just fusion, it was a singularity of pure energy. Smasher saw the light. His threat assessment computer screamed one word: flee. But Smasher didn't flee. He was a monster who had forgotten fear. He fired every weapon he had, missiles, lasers, railguns, directly into the open chest cavity. Astro absorbed it. The energy didn't damage him. It fed him. "Metamorphosis," Astro whispered. The air around him warped. He launched forward. He didn't fly. He teleported through pure speed. He appeared directly in front of Smasher, inside the giant's guard. Smasher tried to grab him. Astro slapped the massive mechanical hand away with the back of his wrist, shattering the servos. Astro placed his palm on Smasher's chest, right over the reactor of the Dione suit. 100% output, Astro said. He pushed. It wasn't a punch. It was a release of kinetic energy equivalent to a tactical nuke, focused into a single point of contact. Crack thum. The back of the Dione suit exploded outward. The armor, built to withstand tank shells, peeled open like a tin can. Smasher was launched backward, not into a wall, but through the entire length of the building. He smashed through the reinforced blast doors of the server room, through the exterior wall, and out into the night sky of Night City. He was a falling star of burning chrome, plummeting toward the streets below. Silence returned to the atrium. Astro stood amidst the wreckage, steam rising from his body. He closed his chest panel. He swayed slightly, his energy reserves drained by the burst. On the balcony, Saburo Arasaka slowly started to clap. The sound was dry, echoing in the ruined hall. "Magnificent," Saburo said, his voice projected through the room's speakers. Astro looked up. He saw the old man. He scanned him. Scan complete. Subject, Saburo Arasaka. Status, deceased, biological. Active, digital/host. Analysis, the source of the sadness. Astro floated up to the balcony level, hovering on the other side of the blast glass. "You are the father," Astro said. "You are the one who hurts everyone." "I bring order," Saburo corrected smoothly. "Look at this city. Without me, it is chaos. You are chaos incarnate. But you could be order. Join me. Smasher was a blunt instrument. You are a scalpel. Together, we could rewrite the history of humanity." "You want to own souls," Astro said, looking past Saburo to the servers below where V was working. "But souls cannot be owned. They can only be shared." "Naive," Saburo scoffed. "Power dictates reality." "No," Astro said. He placed his hand on the blast glass. "Kindness dictates reality. Power just makes it louder." Down below, V screamed, "I'm in! I've got ult! We're flushing Mikoshi! The souls are breaking out!" The tower began to shake violently, not from physical damage, but from the digital backlash. The soul killer prison was cracking. Saburo's expression changed from arrogance to genuine fury. "Stop this! You are destroying the legacy of the Arasaka clan." Your legacy is pain, Astro said. He pulled his hand back. He wasn't going to kill the old man. That wasn't his way, but he was going to make sure he couldn't stop V. Astro tapped the glass. A precise resonance frequency. The blast-proof polymer, designed to stop nuclear blasts, shattered into 1,000,000 diamonds. Saburo flinched back. Astro floated into the private viewing deck. He looked at the control console that managed the tower's defenses. "Do not touch that," Hanako warned, stepping forward, her hand glowing with a hidden monowire. Astro looked at her. "You are sad too. You are trapped in his shadow." He ignored her. He grabbed the main console. He didn't hack it. He ripped the entire computer bank out of the floor, sparks showering like fireworks. "Defense grid, offline," Astro announced. He turned to V. "Is it done?" "Almost," V yelled, sweat pouring down her face as her eyes glowed blue with the data stream. "Alt is crossing the bridge, but Astro, Smasher isn't dead. He's climbing back up the side of the building." Astro walked to the edge of the shattered balcony. He looked down into the abyss of neon. Far below, clinging to the side of the tower, with one remaining arm and jagged broken legs, Adam Smasher was crawling up the steel beams. He was a ruin, leaking fluid and sparks, but his rage was driving him upward like a demon climbing out of hell. "I will handle him," Astro said. "Finish the job, V. Save yourself." He looked back at Saburo one last time. "Goodbye, Emperor." Astro dove off the balcony. He streaked down toward the climbing monster, a blue comet descending to meet the rising darkness. Saburo watched him go. For the first time in a century, the Emperor felt small. He realized he wasn't watching a weapon. He was watching the future, and he was not in it. The wind screamed as Astro dove, a bullet of blue light chasing the falling demon. Adam Smasher was not climbing anymore. He was thrashing, his gravity boots failing, sliding down the sleek black glass of Arasaka Tower. He clawed at the steel beams, tearing gouges deep enough to park a car in. His internal comms were screaming with error messages. Systems critical. Armor 0%. Rage infinite. He looked up and saw the boy descending. "Come on!" Smasher roared, his voice synthesizer glitching into a demonic screech. He routed all remaining power, life support, optics, comms, into his one remaining arm. The pile bunker piston glowed white hot. Astro met him at the 40th floor. There was no impact this time, no shockwave. Astro spun in midair, a maneuver of impossible grace. He dodged the clumsy, desperate strike of the pile bunker. He grabbed Smasher's wrist. "No more," Astro whispered. With a precise application of torque, Astro twisted. The metal shrieked. The arm, Smasher's last weapon, snapped off at the shoulder. Oil and coolant sprayed into the night air like black blood. Smasher howled, a sound of pure mechanical frustration. He tried to bite Astro with his jagged metal jaw. Astro placed a hand on Smasher's faceplate. "You are just a ghost in a shell," Astro said, "and the shell is broken." He fired his jets in reverse. He slammed Smasher into the side of the building, pinning him there as they slid down the remaining 40 stories. Friction turned the glass to magma behind them. They hit the street. The impact cratered the plaza in front of the tower. A cloud of dust rose up, illuminated by the holographic koi fish swimming above. When the dust settled, Adam Smasher lay in the center of the crater. He was no longer a dragon. He was a torso, a head, and a tangle of sparking wires. He twitched, his optics flickering. Astro stood over him, unscathed. Smasher looked up. His targeting computer was dead. He saw the boy not as a target, but as a blinding white silhouette against the Arasaka logo. "You..." Smasher's voice was a whisper of static. "You aren't Chrome." No, Astro said. I am a robot. Smasher's eye flickered once, then died. His system went into emergency hibernation. The Boogeyman of Night City had not been killed. He had been reduced to scrap, a fate far worse for a man who worshipped power. Mikoshi's server room. V gasped, ripping the personal link from her neck. She collapsed onto the cool floor, blood trickling from her nose. The room was dark. The hum of the servers was gone. The red lights of Arasaka were dead, replaced by the cold blue emergency lighting. V! Johnny's voice was frantic. He appeared next to her, flickering. We did it. Alt took it all. Mikoshi is empty. Saburo's engram. It's gone. We wiped the slate. V coughed, laughing weakly. We burned it down, Johnny. We actually burned it down. She tried to stand, but her legs failed. The relic was eating the last of her reserves. V? Astro floated into the room through the shattered wall. He landed softly. He looked at the wreckage of the server room, then at V. It is quiet, Astro said. The screaming souls, they are gone. They're free, V rasped, or as free as data can get. Astro knelt beside her. He scanned her. Subject, V. Neural integrity, 12%. Cellular degeneration, accelerated. Prognosis, terminal. Astro's face fell. I cannot fix this. It is biological. It is written into your DNA. I know, kid, V smiled, reaching out to touch his cold metal hand. Some things you can't punch your way out of, but I'm alive right now, and the tower is dark. That's enough. Astro looked at her hand. He felt the warmth of her fading life. He felt an emotion that his processor categorized as grief, but it felt heavier. It felt human. I can help you walk, Astro said. The roof. They sat on the edge of the helipad, legs dangling over the abyss. The sun was rising over the Badlands, cutting through the smog with a blade of orange light. Smoke billowed from Arasaka Tower below them. Sirens wailed across the entire city. NCPD, MaxTac, trauma team. The corporate order had been decapitated in a single night. So, V said, lighting a cigarette. Her hands were steady now. The end was coming, but the panic was gone. What now, Adam? You gonna stay? Become the new legend of Night City? Astro looked at the city. He saw the beauty in the neon, but he also saw the rot, the endless cycle of consumption and violence. No, Astro said. This world, it is too loud. I cannot hear myself think. Where will you go? Johnny asked, sitting on the other side of V. Astro pointed up, past the smog, past the orbital stations. There are other worlds, Astro said. Maybe one of them needs a friend. He stood up. The wind caught his hair, the iconic spikes that never moved. V, Astro said, do not be afraid. I'm not, V lied. I know you are lying, Astro smiled. That is what makes you human. He reached into his chest panel. He didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a small glowing chip. He handed it to V. What's this? V asked, holding the warm data shard. A blueprint, Astro said, for a clean energy reactor, small enough to power a house, big enough to change the world. Give it to the Nomads, give it to Judy, do not give it to the corporations. V closed her fist around the chip. A parting gift? A seed, Astro corrected. He stepped back. His boots began to glow. The fusion drive spooled up, a low hum that vibrated in V's chest. Goodbye, V. Goodbye, Johnny. See you in the major leagues, kid, Johnny saluted. Astro crouched. Launch. He didn't just fly, he departed. He became a streak of light, brighter than the rising sun. He punched a hole through the clouds, leaving a perfect circle of blue sky in the gray ceiling of Night City. V watched him go until he was just a star in the daylight. She took a drag of her cigarette and looked at the chip in her hand. Then she looked at the rising sun. "Well," V whispered, standing up as the AVs of her friends, Panam and Judy, crested the horizon to pick her up. "Guess we got work to do." Epilogue: The Legend. Night City didn't change overnight. The gang still fought, the corpos still schemed, but the fear was gone. Saburo Arasaka was exposed, his empire fractured by lawsuits and internal coups. Adam Smasher was mounted on a wall in a scrapyard, a deactivated trophy. But in the Badlands, the Aldecaldos had endless power. Their camp lights never flickered, and on the streets a new religion formed. Not the cyber worship of Maelstrom, but something quieter. Kids in the Glen painted murals of a boy with red boots. Netrunners whispered about the ghost in the machine that healed the Blackwall. They didn't call him a weapon. They didn't call him a product. They called him the star. And somewhere deep in the cold vacuum of space, a small robot flew on, his heart beating with the energy of 1,000 suns, looking for the next hand to hold. The narrative thread has reached its terminus. The current timeline stabilizes, and the audio transmission ends here. But the portal never truly closes. It only waits for the next divergence. To ensure you are present when reality fractures again, you must align with the signal. Subscribe to What If Portal Comics. It is the only way to guarantee your passage into the next chapter. The archives are vast, and another world is already waiting for your observation on the screen. The next jump is yours to make. For now, let the static fade. Enjoy the music in this moment of stillness while you decide your next destination. See you in the next reality.